Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Slam of Wrestling. Myself, Suprit, and this is your AEW Dynamite review for what's the date, Ridwan? 24th
24th. 24th.
November 2021. What did you think about this show? It was in Chicago. Chicago feels big every time, when AEW shows up. And I thought the wrestling on this show was not big of a deal, but there were certain segments that were great overall. I would say it was a good show. What did you think about it?
Yeah, the matches were very throwaway-ish, except for the main event. I mean, festive episodes tend to be a little throwaway-ish, but there were like a lot of promos that that were to be taken to right home, and this arena that they did the show in Wintrust Arena. It's the same arena that they've done Revolution 2020, where Mox won the AEW World Championship. So it's certainly a big deal whenever they come to Chicago, be it here or the Sia Center where they had All Out. But yeah, overall, I thought like the promos were fire. The matches were a bit take it or leave it, but the show overall was pretty good. Certainly an enjoyable one as they usually do.
And you were saying something like before we started recording that there is certain missing from Dynamites. We know Rampages have been. It's just there, and it's not bad for a hour-long show. But you have a certain different feeling about Dynamite.
Yes, like only a certain thing is missing. What according to me, that's probably just me. But yeah, overall, it's still like an easy to get through show, and certainly that's makes you happy after watching wrestling. So Dynamite is very much that. Like you're not entirely disappointed with something or the other happening.
But they have announced, some specials like including Battle of the Belts. I think they announced that it's going to happen in January 8th in what's that
Charlotte,
arena?
it's in Bojangles Coliseum.
And yeah, I think wasn't that the same place that they announced the Rampage first dance in
No,
Chicago happening?
no. Yeah, I guess because they did Fight for the Fallen over there, and Fight for the Fallen was where Darby Allin cut that Best in the World promo. So
Makes
yes,
sense.
yeah,
And that's in 2022 in January. So
Jan 8th.
December is going to be, yeah, December is feeling some like they're going to end the year with a bang. With winter is coming, and I told you that there will be a certain surprise.
Bit cold of a cold surprise, if you will.
Perfect time for a potential Wyndham debut.
I don't know about that. I mean, maybe good if it happens, but you know my opinions on that. But I if it's a big debut happening on the show, it has to be Wyndham because I don't see anyone else debuting and leaving because last year Sting had debuted on Winter is Coming, so that has left a precedent of itself. If it's someone like as the rumored arrivals of Johnny Gargano and Kyle O'Reilly, it'll be a cold surprise, but for a lot of different reasons. Like it won't be that big of a wow factor. And I don't mean this as a disrespect to both Johnny or Adam. Sorry, Johnny or Kyle, but as like I said, if they are debuting a big name, it has to be with him. With all his mistake and whatever may have you.
Or who knows? It could be Paul Levesque himself.
Yeah. Now, but I heard he's looking after a different promotion now, as in he's trying to buy. It's called Ring of Hunter.
I don't know, man. Will Sinclair do that?
Probably they have vested interest in women of wrestling. So at this point,
God knows, man, what's happening. But wrestling looks cool, fun, as as 2022 comes around, and pretty excited for January, man. really great wrestling throughout that month.
Especially like at the very beginning of the year, because you have 3 days of Wrestle Kingdom, and there's I think the first day they're doing the New Year show. WWE are doing a New Year's pay-per-view, and after
It's day
that,
one.
day one, yeah, and I think then eighth we have Battle of the Belts, and I think there are more shows in the middle. Probably even Hard to Kill is somewhere around that time for Impact.
I'm skipping that.
Yeah, the main event is pretty, yeah, if you read the spoilers.
About Impact,
Yep.
I don't give a shit about Impact.
I mean, yeah, not anymore after, the AEW association has fell through.
Me never.
I mean, I was a huge Impact mark back then when, during its peak 06, 07 days, and even taking like as recent as 2016 to 2018. I thought 2018 was like one of the best years they've had in terms of quality.
I can't stand that promotion. I'm actually jealous that it didn't die.
To each their own, I guess.
But anyways, let's talk about Dynamite Man. But before that, if you're new to Slam of Wrestling, then make sure to like, share, subscribe, do all that fun stuff. Check out our other content. Links provided in the description below. But they kicked off Dynamite here in Chicago. Very big here. So they started off with like Mussolini
And
and Kennedy.
Kennedy, we
CM
have,
Punk, man. Chicago's own CM Punk showed up. Big reaction, like always. So he was, you were saying something.
yeah, I liked how they started off, CM Punk's entrance. The first shot is the same guy who was doing the oh my God when Punk debuted. And apparently, he's the same person who was standing next to Punk when he was blowing a kiss to Vince McMahon at Money in the Bank 2011.
And I was surprised that he gave the exact same reaction.
Yeah, probably the camera guys knew that he was there and they wanted him to act as over the top as possible.
Great, that was great. So Punk was just, showing off to the crowd, his hometown crowd, and all of a sudden, like he was actually supposed to face QT Marshall. All of a sudden, Maxwell Jacob Friedman's music hit, and he's getting this nuclear hit by default. He
Tony
just
Schiavone.
interrupted the hometown guy.
Yes, and of course Tony Schiavone is like, this son of a bitch. He had
The
Tony Schiavone
hatred.
had his Tony Schiavone had his JR moment over there. Son of a bitch.
So he's interrupted CM Punk. That's a big no-no here in Chicago. And they had a little segment. This was basically a promo battle. And I made a little, you could say, calculation. And they even posted it on YouTube. This went about 15 minutes, this promo segment.
Yep. Because
Yeah, this.
by the time Punk stopped talking, like, just day, like I might be getting ahead of myself. At that time, like the show reached 22, 23 minute marks. So you knew it was like a long ass promo that they did.
Yeah, it kind of went like a very WWE segment. Like if I was watching a SmackDown or a Raw.
Yes, but instead we have Triple H doing the, yeah.
Yeah, but the point I was, getting across, this went about 15 minutes, and this segment had more time compared to the entire Queen's Crown tournament. There you go.
There's
This
your
is your Queen's Crown joke of the week.
Yes.
But
I thought you'd save that for the TBS match, but I
I
think the
actually
earlier.
had nothing, to actually plug it. So this was a great time. But this segment, Ridwan, what did you think of it? Like there are some comparison that it almost reached pipe bomb, levels, and you could say this was a great segment, but I won't go far enough and say this was the best one of the best promos you have ever heard in AEW.
I mean, promos of the year. sure, but not an all, I mean, not the greatest of all time promos. But this promo was like great in itself because, like, it was, in a way, it was highlighting MJF as, like, making him a bigger star than he already was. And, hanging with someone like Punk or actually getting the best of him. It worked for Eddie Kingston because, like, a lot of people knew what Eddie Kingston was about. And this was, say, a similar case with MJF if people didn't know him already. So I thought this was a fantastic promo from both sides because MJF was on fire like he usually is, and the less said about Punk on the mic, the better. So I thought it was a fantastic promo from both of these guys.
We were talking about it like brought this point up. Like they kicked AEW is like this is the second time that a Dynamite show has kicked off with a promo segment. They did it last week. It was good. They also did it here as well. And my question is, was this too long for a promo segment?
I mean, based on what they were, what the content was, I thought it was fair, or I'd say it was good. I went a bit long for my taste, but overall, like, it was an enjoyable promo, so no major complaints about that.
And the report is that they actually went overtime with this.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if that's actually true.
And but the overall this promo was fantastic and a lot to cover here, man. Can you help me with some of the highlights mentioned by these two men?
Okay, so
Basically, this was live murder again on national television.
yes,
They
but
did it
it
with
was,
Brian Pillman.
yeah, but both of them were, like, at but yeah, good. Like, if you were to, like, have a contest in this promo, MJF clearly wins it, I'd say.
Do you think so?
Because, I mean, Punk had, like, some very big jabs, like he gave back to MJF. But I thought, like, MJF was, like, on top of his game, like, if you were to compare, because it wasn't like Punk had some great lines, but it wasn't his best night. Like, we've seen better from him than how he performed, if you want to call that. But this was MJF was, like, at his very best in this, if that makes sense.
Basically,
Yeah.
Punk met his match on the mic.
Yes, that's a great way to put it.
So tell us some of the highlights, man. Lot to cover here.
Okay, yes, because I have, like, a full page of notes and I'm, like, using this one.
Oh,
So first, when CM Punk makes his entrance, and then, like, while he's entering the ring, MJF interrupts him. So there are already asshole chants to MJF, and then, like, first he's like, yeah, now you know how does it feel to be interrupted, and I'm doing it in your hometown. And then the crowd chants, shut the fuck up, to MJF. And MJF is, like, retorting back. He's like, shh, I'm talking. And then, MJF starts off as, like the great CM Punk. I've been a fan of you all these years, and there's no shame in admitting that. So that's all. Like, if there's no way of putting Punk over it. This, you want to, like, you could call it that. And then he's like, the pipe bomb was your best Punk moment, but whenever I'm talking, it's like every single moment is the best moment of MJF. And he's like, you are a straight edge. I respect that, but I wouldn't really be. I want to be in your shoes because of the way you look. With your gray beard. I would like to take 8 shots of whiskey just to look at myself in the mirror to make myself look good. And then, if the low hanging fruit, like how Punk mentioned, was like, I will finish you quicker than your UFC career, because, like, that was the obvious jab that MJF had to take. And
round one goes to MJF.
yes, and to finish off this round, as you said, he's like, you drop pipe bombs, I drop nukes. So then Punk takes the mic, and Punk is like, MJF, I'm disappointed in you. Like you said, MJF stands for Maxwell Jacob Friedman, but I thought MJ, like, the way you're behaving, MJF stands for my jealous fan. I thought that was a great line from Punk. He's like, you can call you like you're saying that whatever you're doing is revolutionary in this wrestling business, like the way you act inside and outside the ring. You're just a less famous Miz, which popped the crowd huge. And then he was getting Miz chance, and then MJF was like, "Shut up, I'm not talking to you." And then I thought that was like a very sick burn from Punk. And
Almost. MJF's career almost ended
yeah,
right there.
almost there, but like we'll get to more. And then he's getting missed chance, and then he's like, You're exactly the way you're behaving, like you're just a nostalgia act, and nostalgia loses its luster after a certain point." And then he's like, "Ever since you've come back, like you've been a very robotic ass kisser." He's like, "Your breath stinks because of the ass that you kiss, and you've been very robotic." And then he tries to do an impression of a robot, telling that he's doing an impression of Punk, saying, "It's great to be back in insert name." And then he's like, "I can't wait to face." And then well, after that he's like, "You're not CM Punk anymore, you're PG Punk." Like you're Yeah, one another line, he's like, "When you were at the other company, you were the underdog and you had built a cult of your own because the fans thought you deserved better. Now over here you have a chance of doing that, but you are not. You are losing, like you've lost your mojo, you've lost your touch, yada yada." And then he's like, "You're PG Punk, and or you it's only a matter of time before you start preaching hustle, loyalty, and respect," which was a nod to John Cena. He's like, "I can see you, in fact I can see through you." And from there he's like, just one moment. He's like, you're not, you call yourself the best in the world, but you are actually second best, because you've always been the second best to the guy you can't see, or you get to, or the King of Kings." And he's like, "MJF, when he said that, sorry for messing up the timeline a little. He said that you have all the, like you've lost your hunger, you've lost the edge, you doubted yourself." And then he's like, "MJF is like, he's everything that Punk hates in pro wrestling, when a guy who climbs to the top, through his rich connections and all." And then when he does the second best line, and then that's when MJF uses his catchphrase saying, "I'm better than you and you know it." And after that, CM Punk, gets the mic back, and he admits to whatever MJF has said, that he's lost his hunger because he was doubtful of how he would be received by the fans after walking away from wrestling. And then he's like, he's true, but like he was scared if he could hang with the best guys, but no more. And MJF is like, the main gist of it is MJF is also disappointed that Punk didn't mention his names in the list of guys that he wanted to work with. So Punk, he's like, "You're headlining the New York Times, like you have been doing." Okay, sorry. So he's like, yeah,
Like
he's
he made the New York Times because of singing and dancing. Then
yes. The
he
line that he uses is like, Punk headlined MJF at the same age, at MJF's age, when he was marking out to Rosie O'Donnell. And
like he
after,
headlined MSG.
yes, or the same, like at the same time, and then basically, trying to prove the veterans' worth, like how old CM Punk is and how much of a kid MJF is. And then he's like, "You are headlining the New York Times for your singing and dancing, but the next time you headline the New York Times, it will be for your obituary," which was a very sick burn. And then, like I mentioned, when MJF mentioned that Punk didn't use MJF's name in the list of guys that he wanted to work with. And then Punk uses that. It's like, I wanted to wrestle a lot of guys, and hell, I chose the heart and soul of AEW, which was Darby Allin, and I fought him before you, which must have made you more jealous than anything else. And you talk about the four pillars of AEW, but you forgot to realize that you've been replaced by Britt Baker, which was like another ouch moment. And like one last burn was MJF, like you're the second, like he called Punk the second best. You're the actual second best because, and the only way you can be number one is if you would wait long enough for Tony Khan to have a daughter and MJF could marry her. I think
Okay, this
I think
is
I take my words back when I said MJF won the promo battle, but this was an equal match. I apologize for the earlier claim. It was very
you
evenly
can make an
matched.
argument. You
Yeah.
can make an argument with the last line you just mentioned. Punk won via knockout.
Yes. So he's like the best welcome back gift to the Chicago fans if Punk punches MJF in the needle dick. And then that's when a brawl tries to ensue and MJF then bails out. So there is your entire, from the promo till the end of this segment was like entirely 20 minutes long. And there you go.
Actually, shocked that they aired the dick word.
Yeah, and even the fans started chanting Needle Dick" while MJF was making his way out.
So you could say Punk, in a way, embarrassed MJF on the mic. So when this match happens, you have to equal the situation here. MJF has to beat CM Punk clean in their wrestling match.
It won't be clean because there will be something or the other happening from like MJF's goons. Or if MJF has to lose, then probably they have to have the Wardlow turn now.
I don't know which direction they are particularly considering, but this is some great stuff, man. Like since last week, right? That they teased us,
Yes.
and they even touched. They haven't even touched yet.
Yes, and it's like they haven't really progressed much with this, but still, like it's reached to a point where you're damn excited because I mean, the inevitable promo of that they were going to have happened like last night or a couple of nights ago. But even then, it's like you were sure that it was going to be an awesome promo, and lo and behold, it was one such.
But I don't know, man. Do they do this at Winter is Coming or maybe somewhere in January?
I
Like
was
we got
thinking
some pretty big shows.
Yeah, I was thinking either was it going to be winter is coming or maybe they would have stretched it a little to their the first TBS show because I feel this deserves a bigger stage than that probably the Revolution pay-per-view, but we are very so far removed from that. Like I think how far is it? 3 months because Revolution is like at the start of March. So it would
No,
have
I
it
think it's in February.
like end of Feb, start of March, because last year, the first Revolution pay-per-view, which happened in Wintrust Arena, happened on the 29th of February. And last year's happened on I think 6th or 7th of March. So
We'll have to wait and see. But one thing from this promo, he mentioned the Miz line. I think there could be a thing that there is hate between Punk and Miz.
there is like there was a point where the IWC hated Miz because of CM Punk's comment on this on the Art of Wrestling podcast by Colt Cabana. Because Punk is like he's mentioned he's jealous of Miz because he got to main event WrestleMania and Punk did. Now he's made peace with that claim, but it's still something that it used to eat Punk alive if AEW wasn't a thing.
Remember that one time where I think he blasted Miz on some comments that Miz made about CM Punk. So Punk responded with go continue sucking
Saudi.
that blood money, something related Saudi.
Yes. I wouldn't say the explicit words on this, but I know what you're referring to.
Yeah, which was pretty hilarious, but he deleted man.
Yeah, I would have probably retweeted that now that you've mentioned it.
It is somewhere still in the internet.
Yeah, like
Some
it
there
would,
could be a screenshot here and there.
yeah, it will exist in screenshots, and they could probably, get use it in that sense.
But we'll have to wait and see, man. This is, you could say, one of the best thing that AEW is doing right now, especially with CM Punk.
Yes, and I don't get it, okay? Like people are claiming that Punk has become a bit too boring because he needs a feud. He needed a feud and now he has. And these guys, like, with WWE references, people are still complaining that why did he do that? Because they are just acknowledging Punk's history. They won't stop complaining, but fuck them. This segment was awesome.
But after this segment, were you ready to watch CM Punk versus QT Marshall? Because at that point, I didn't actually needed this match, and in a way, I didn't care about it.
Yeah, you needed a breathing room, so it worked in that sense.
So nothing much to cover on this match, like QT Marshall's goons. That was Komarato and Solo were kicked off by the referee. So do you know what that reference comes from?
Like I know where it comes from, but I haven't heard it. Like, it's from the Jim Cornette Experience podcast. Like, does he say
Yeah,
it that way?
yeah. He actually put those guys over than AEW has.
CM Punk after all.
Yeah, even Punk made that reference in a promo at the last Rampage, which popped me and him, Jim Cornette himself.
Oh, I have
But
to check. I have
anyways,
to check Jim Cornette's reaction to that.
yeah, Cornette's AEW, he's actually praising a lot, especially with Punk.
And he always has, like it's a weird world that we live in because whatever him and Melzer say about AEW, it's like entirely opposite of what the fans' perception is. And that's a topic for
Yeah,
another time though, but just needed to mention that.
yeah. Quickly about this match. So, Comrato Solo, they are kicked out by the referee. They had a decent enough match. So at the end, Punk got the victory with the GTS, and there you go, man. That's
Yeah.
it.
I think the only highlight of this match was Punk still putting the body slam over. Like he did 4 times and then QT was just selling huge for that. And I think
Uh,
QT should get his due. Like he's a pretty decent hand as a worker and he's a good enough promo as well.
why does Cutie's ring gear reminds me of The Rock?
It reminds me of Triple H, if anything.
I think he kind of moves like The Rock for some weird reason.
And like he dresses up as Tony Soprano. He like his ring gear is like The Rock, and he wrestles a bit like Triple H. So this is like a weird combination that we have right now.
But anyways, man, moving on with this show, we had a promo from Christian Cage, who was with Jurassic Express. They're talking about the momentum that Jurassic Express has since the pay-per-view win with that trios match and beating Bobby Fish, Adam Cole in last week's Rampage. So there was some sneaky comment by Jungle Boy, man, regarding Bobby Fish,
Beat
and
him
I'm
twice.
noticing that, yeah, and I'm noticing that Jungle Boy is getting a certain confidence in it.
Yes, it is not a heel turn, by the way. If you're listening to this
No,
podcast, I know I'm just
you
mentioning to
could
the
say it is
listeners.
a, yeah, it is the evolution of Jungle Boy. That's it.
He's becoming a jungle man.
Yeah, in many ways. But regarding Jurassic Express, Christian Cage claims that they need tag team championships. They have had opportunities in the past, but this time they have to get the belts, something like that. This was the main topic of the promo, and they even mentioned that they are number one ranked in the tag division. So anytime now we could be seeing the Lucha Bros and Jurassic Express for the tag team titles, and I won't be surprised if the title switch hands.
Me neither, actually. Because he's like he will make sure that the Jurassic Express wins. And now with the renewed confidence and the mentioned momentum, we could see it happening. My concern is like if they don't, where does that leave Jurassic Express? Because they've had way too many opportunities at the tag titles and they've lost each and every single one of them.
Yeah, that makes sense. So either you hold it off, stretch it out. You could add in a bunch of tag matches in the middle, and when you do that match with Jurassic Express, they should win the titles, not lose the match.
Yes, and like it's only a matter of time because what if they are number one contenders and they have to defend that number one contendership because like when someone is number one contender and they somehow end up losing a match, they have to relinquish that spot. So what if we see a point where Young Bucks come back and because right now they are not medically cleared and Matt, both of them are a little burnt out, so they've taken some rest. So what if this happens? Like somehow they manage to come back and cost them the number one contendership. Because then they could probably stretch it out. Because and it's a shame because even the Lucha Brothers, after winning, they haven't really done all that much with the belts. Like they have this FTR feud going on, which is going well, but besides that, they haven't done much. They've taken like more of a backward or yeah,
Backseat.
yeah, they've taken a bit of a backseat. Like I was going to say a backward role or something. So yeah, they've taken a bit of a backseat, which is a shame. But if they want to change hands now, I wouldn't completely be against it.
We'll have to wait and see. And it would be surprising that we get a short title reign in AEW because that's not a thing. We usually get a long title reign.
Yeah, FTR was the last short title reign I can remember, or maybe the late Brody Lee.
We'll have to wait and see. But moving on, we had Eddie Kingston. He was in the catering finally. I was trying to have this delicious cake, but he's interrupted by 2.0 and Daniel Garcia. Kingston is disappointed, and the 2.0 and Daniel Garcia, they are just throwing out some random shit regarding things. Can you help me in this situation? Like, what did they actually mention?
Okay, so like when Eddie Kingston started this promo in catering, he was having a cake and coffee, and he was sending best wishes to John Moxley, and so do we actually. We hope that he's doing better now. And 2.0 later interrupts, and Matt Lee from 2.0 he puts over the Players Tribune article that Eddie Kingston had written saying that he understands the struggles and he's thankful of whatever he's done and all that, but with the way that he, like, according to Matthew, with the way that he wrote the article, it felt like he was full and he wasn't hungry anymore, which was like a bit of a Thanksgiving reference because you eat a lot, and like the hunger, the desire to succeed, whatever you want to call it. And then Jeff Parker was trying to instigate more shit onto him, and then Daniel Garcia spills coffee in Eddie's face, and the brawl ensues, and then Eddie is taken back, and the 2.0 and Garcia escape. So that was the entire promo, which is building up to the match on Rampage between Eddie Kingston and Daniel Garcia. So should be a good one.
Should be a good one, man. But I was more concerned about what cake was Kingston having.
I think it was a tiramisu or a chocolate cake. Like not chocolate
What is your
tiramisu.
favorite?
Tiramisu. No, wait. Saffron cake.
You are more of a saffron guy.
Yep.
Oh, great. But moving on, we had a random match here on Dynamite. This was Gun Club versus Bear Country, and I think this went just 2 minutes.
Yeah. It was
Felt
a
like a dark match.
it was a the AW dark match, and it was just there. Like, the main purpose of it was just whatever happened out after the match. So
I didn't care about the match. My only concern was what the hell was that thing on Billy Gunn's neck?
oh yeah, it's called a choker.
Was it a choker or did he make a tattoo of a choker?
No, no, no. It was an actual choker. Like it was a thing in probably 2015 or 2016 where like it among the teenagers they used to wear it a lot. So that Billy Gunn is a hip person. Remember Billy Gunn in Beautiful People in TNA?
Yeah, he was called Cool Kip or
Cute
Cool
Kip.
Skip.
Cute
Oh, it
Kip.
was Cute Kip.
Yep.
Yeah, 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 at least, yeah, that was some gimmick. He had pretty outlandish gimmick in the past, right?
Of course,
His whole
man.
career.
He was Mr. Ass, and now he has his Ass Boys or Ass Club, or how Danhausen calls them, Ass Boys.
Yeah, I think he was the one who called them ass boys, if I'm
Yeah,
not wrong.
it's become a meme now. So kudos to Danhausen, and I hope he's doing better now with his leg
Yeah,
injury.
yeah, love that Danhausen. But this match ended quickly, 2 minutes. Gun Club get the victory, and
Colton
we
Gunn,
have a little.
Colton Gunn is still undefeated, mind you.
I think it's time they brought that fact up as well, man. I think that's the reason that they are getting featured on TV right now.
Yeah, like it's like it would be poetic if Colton's first loss is Darby Allin.
But speaking about Darby Allin, he showed up, to get some revenge, after what happened on Rampage. So no, no, it wasn't. It didn't go actually like that. Actually,
So
Darby Allin's
Darby
music hit.
and Sting shows up first, and
Yeah,
Austin Gunn being the enthusiastic brat, he just runs out to take out Sting, and then Darby hits him with the pounce. Like he just rushes into him full speed, and then they both Sting and Darby try to get to the ring, and then both Billy and Colton escape. So there you go.
my question to you is Austin Gunn alive?
I hope he's okay. If the apology on Twitter is concerned, I think he's doing well.
Yeah, was that the reason Darby went out to business for himself?
No, I mean Darby has to be concerned with his own problems in that case.
Come on, man. So let's just ignore all those facts. But this spot here was insane. I would compare it to that time Sammy Guevara actually got ran over by a golf cart. This was a similar type of moment. I actually thought Austin Gunn was legit gone. The way he was just laying there on the entranceway while these guys are fighting in the ring was just insane to me. So there you go,
And
the potential.
Darby Allen also with his great Monty Brown impression with the pounce.
Oh, Monty Brown actually made the pounce over in wrestling.
Yeah. And then like after that, I think Keith Lee got it over for a while, and then it was just there.
So yeah, this program is building towards a tag match or a six-man potentially if you can add Paul White in this situation. If
Oh
everything
yes.
could make sense.
Oh yes, please. Because I mean Paul White has to be there because he never got his revenge after the Gun Club turned heel on him. And
Um,
yeah,
yeah, you're saying something.
before we end this segment, the Darby Allin's face paint was a tribute to a recently deceased vocalist named Hank Von Hell. Is he was a frontman of the band Turbo Negro. So like he used to wear a face paint while he used to sing songs, and he just recently passed away. So Darby's face paint was a tribute to that.
Pretty Darby has a pretty great creativity when he does this the face paint and stuff.
Yep.
But moving on, man, we had Bobby Fish and Adam Cole. They had a little backstage promo segment. No Young Bucks in sight. You mentioned they're out with injury. So they were talking about their recent losses. Adam Cole is just sick of all the things, and we get a small interruption by the best friends.
Yeah.
We had Wheeler Utah, Orange Cassidy, Chuck Taylor over there. So Adam Cole, talks a little trash about the best friends.
Yeah,
Says where is
I'm sorry, he calls himself and Bobby Fish to be best friends, and then the best friends team interrupts. And then Chuck Taylor goes like, no, like you dogs walked right past us. You just ignored us. We are actual best friends. And then Cole is like, oh, really? Where's Trent? And then he's like, you guys are dogs. You're not best friends. We are best friends. And then Cole and Orange Cassidy comes face to face. And then Utah is like, who are you even? Why are you even here? And Bobby Fish is like, why? What does Utah even mean? Do you even have a middle name? Which I thought was hilarious. And the line from Adam Cole where he said, "Where's Trent?" is a reference to like these vignettes that the WWE used to air, when Trent was there. Probably in FCW or NXT, where like they teased it for a while and then forgot about it. So it's a reference to that, like where's Trent, and that is the reason why Trent has a question mark on his ring name.
Yeah, you cannot trademark the question mark.
Can't you? But his
I don't know
name.
how copyrights work, man.
Yeah, but with Trent, I mean, that's the reason that they have like copyrighted with his name. Like, of course, he holds the copyright because he has used this name in the independent scene, and also I think in New Japan he was called Beretta.
Yeah, there are a lot of names for Trent Beretta,
I mean, that
Trent question mark.
nothing compares to the Chuck Taylor's list of names.
Is he called Chucky T or Chuck Taylor right now?
I mean, right now he's called Chuck Taylor, but he's had like a list of names, which is a story in itself, which I'll delve into sometime later. But yeah, there you go about this promo. Like that was it, it is building up to a match on Rampage between Cole and Bobby Fish versus Orange Cassidy and Wheeler Utah, which means that Wheeler Utah is taking the pin in
We'll have to wait and see. That match is happening on Rampage, right?
this week. Yeah,
Yeah, but moving on, we had one of the greatest contract signings in professional wrestling history. This is
no table
between Team
breaks,
Taz.
no table breaks.
Not at all. This is Team Taz, trying to sign Dante Martin to a contract. Shivani was, the main figure to, see the contract signing. So Leo Rush, he was checking out the contract, reading the terms and condition, like everyone should. And he's little iffy about it. He's not actually in it. And he says, openly says that Dante Martin will not sign this contract. But Dante actually picks up the pen, takes the contract, and you could hear the arena, gasp. And he finally signs it. He's officially Dante Martin is all FTW. Is officially, in a ways, joined Team Taz. Excuse me. And after that, everyone walks. Okay, so I was saying, each and every member of Team Taz walks out of the room, and something happened with Hook.
Yes, and just a moment. Um, yeah. So
What's
Leoris,
going on, man?
yeah, I had some technical difficulties, so apologies for that.
You had to mess me up at the hook line. I forgot my hook line. Hook
Okay,
the crook gave something to Dante Martin. What was that?
potato chips.
Is it true?
Yes, it is because Hook had offered him potato chips when Ricky Starks cut that promo on Rampage. Remember when he was offering the contract for the first time?
Mm-hmm.
So,
Okay.
Dante Martin is officially all FTW, is it, or is
And his
he?
brother posted. Yeah, that's the story. And his brother posted WTF.
Established 1987.
Oh man, this I don't know. This was I didn't expect this out of Dante Martin. Dante Martin joining Team Taz was not in my November bingo card.
Yes, it feels very out of place, because like the stable is like filled with brutes. Like Ricky Starks is of course the flashy, charismatic one, but at the end of the day, he's also a mean SOB, if you want to call him that. But I feel it's a setup to Darius returning. because if you notice during the contract signing, they didn't really flip the pages. Like it was just there at the contract page that Dante signed. And probably it's a way to trick Team Taz into thinking that he's in, but perhaps he's not. It's leading up to something else. But I don't know where is the story going. I hope it's a
Did
setup to
they
itself.
um, remember when there was a thing with Hangman and Matt Hardy? They
That's
had to do a
exactly
contract signing.
yeah, that's exactly what I thought of when I noticed
It took
that
me a
they
week. It took me a week to realize Hangman actually didn't sign the contracts.
yes, he threw that Matt Hardy's contract away and just pulled out a contract from his pocket because Matt was trying to drunk him and like he was trying to manipulate him by making him drunk and then letting him sign the contract so that Hangman doesn't know that he did. So like smart baby faces in wrestling are a lost art in a way.
Yeah, we need more smart baby faces these days.
Yes, but that with Dante's case, it depends on where they are leading towards. So I hope it's what I've thought it is, because it still feels very out of place seeing Dante in Team Taz. Like I love Team Taz personally. I love you know Stark especially, and of course Hook. Everyone loves Hook, but
Everyone hooks.
everyone is a hooker. Okay, no, shouldn't have said that, but yes, I let's see where this goes, where the story goes.
Was it a potato chip or a candy man?
It's a potato chip, of course. It was like an
Are you
open,
sure?
yeah.
We need to check it out again. But let's talk about the TBS title tournament match. This is between Thunder Rosa and Jamie Hayter, who was accompanied by Reba, not Rebel, and Dr. Britt Baker, DMD. And this match was really good, man. This felt intense. And yeah, this is what women's wrestling should be, man. Like, very intense, just kicking ass, and we were not shocked by the outcome, but they did some, we could say, potential planting on the seats. But overall, really good match. Thunder Rosa actually came out victorious here. What did you think about this match?
Yeah, I thought this match was really, really, really good. And like to start off this match, like just before that, when Thunder Rosa was doing her entrance, there was a sign that read La Greca fears Rosa. And it's a story from the weekend because like Dave LaGreca, who's a podcast host like us, um, he had covered a show on Thunder Rosa's, all women's promotion called Mission Pro Wrestling. And there was an angle that they ran where Thunder Rosa spears Dave LaGreca into a wall of bricks. So that's what the reference was. And then the match starts, both of them go into a collar and elbow tie up, a very aggressive one. And then from there, like, both of them exchange blows. And then they go to an ad break where Jamie Hinter dominates most of the match. And then Thunder Rosa tries to make a comeback, and both of them are going back and forth, hell for leather on each other, just trading forearms. And it was a very strike heavy match because, I mean, it also goes into Jamie Hinter's, brute strength as, like, as a wrestler, because she's also a big striker. At the same time, Thunder Rosa was an MMA fighter. And this main
Uh,
story of this, yeah,
to interrupt you on that part, this
go
was
on.
a Queen's Road match.
Yes, like great All Japan reference there, Supreet. And then like the main portion of this, or the main story, was that Thunder Rosa was trying to take down her larger opponent in Jamie Hayter through submissions. They were trying to, she was trying to cut out her breath through these guillotine chokes and, like, more submission maneuvers. And the finish of this match was where I think she locks into a guillotine, and then Rebel distracts referee Rick Knox, and then Baker saves Jamie Hayter, who taps out to the guillotine, but the referee doesn't see it, so it's invalid. And then Baker saves Hayter from that lockup. And then she tries to go for a super kick on Thunder Rosa, and then Thunder Rosa ducks and it hits Jamie Hayter, and then Thunder Rosa rolls up Jamie Hayter for the victory and progress to the semifinals of the TBS tournament. So there you go.
So Thunder Rosa should face Jade Cargill, right? In the
She
next
is
round.
in the semifinals, yes.
Expect some shenanigans after what we see in here. It's clear now that they want to build Thunder Rosa versus Britt Baker.
Yes, but depends when they, pull it off. I hope they save it up to Revolution, but it's pretty far off from now.
Yeah, you can easily get to that and give us a very good build.
Yep. And they have history, so that also ties up to that. And this has to result in Thunder Rosa winning the AEW Women's World Championship.
That's a great story, but to get that, we also need a good build as well, man. That
Yeah,
is what's lacking in Brit's title reign.
I mean, yes, which is a hard thing to say in a way, but at the end, it's still like, I'm enjoying her reign simply for the character and not for the matches.
Mm, she is feeling like a star.
Yeah, I mean, she is a star like in this women's division, but
She's the pillar now of
yeah,
AEW, one of the pillars.
yes, yes. Sorry, MJF.
Yeah, that's his own fault, MJF's.
Yep.
But they also, this is regarding Thunder Rosa, Jade Cargill. Jade Cargill mostly at this point is advancing, but they also showed something about Ruby Soho and Chris Statlander. Yet again, promo matches to build this match especially, and this match potentially should be good. Like the rest of the matches in this tournament have been, you know, really good, and
I think
expect.
it's been a success so far, the TBS tournament, because a lot of matches have felt special and different. And the way, like I've mentioned in the past, the way they seeded this tournament was really good. And perhaps you could say the match between Ruby Soho and Chris Atlanta is the biggest match of the entire tournament so far because of the amount of story that they've put into it and the weeks of build leading up to this match, even like showcasing it heavily on Dark and Elevation, and of course having them segment each other. I mean, having a segment brawling with each other, yada yada, and telling their stories. So this match has certainly felt huge all this while.
But moving on, we heard from Chris Jericho. He was being interviewed by Alex Marvez, if I'm not wrong.
I
But
think I'm sorry. Did we mention Jamie Hater like leaving the ring, like throwing away Britt Baker and Rebel, and then walking away from them?
yeah, that is yet another planting of the seeds, and that will also happen in the future. You know, we could see dissension, some legit dissension between Britt Baker and Jamie Hater. And right now they would be fine, but you could visit that in the near future.
Yes, and there's a thing that people have pointed out on the internet that whenever Britt does the DMD thing, Jamie Hater isn't the one who does it, but Rebel just forces her to do it. So they have been teasing it for a while in a way.
You know, that's because Jamie Hater is doesn't want to be the lackey, but you could tell a story of, you know, she's leeching off Britt Baker to get to the next level.
Yep,
But
right.
we were talking about Chris Jericho, man. He was being interviewed, and even he gets interrupted by 2.0 and Daniel Garcia. More TV time for these trios. They're basically doing the same thing here, just talking shit to Jericho. But Jericho being Jericho, I think he called Matt Lee a SpongeBob squarehead, something like that.
He called him a
And I
squarehead
won't.
and then called him an ugly SpongeBob.
And he went and called him a ugly SpongeBob as well.
Yep.
Okay, there you go. So that was basically your entire segment. I don't know what this leads to, but yeah, man, this
Yes,
was on Dynamite.
yes, and I like how this entire episode was filled with references from the past. Like CM Punk and MJF promos set up a lot of things in motion in that sense, because when Jericho referenced the coffee, like if you threw a coffee on my face, I'll punch your teeth down your throat. And then there was a feud in WWE back in I think 2000 or 2001, where Jericho and Kane feuded because Jericho spilled a cup of coffee on Kane. So I was gonna say Kane's chest, but yeah.
Yeah, Kane got reminded of his past.
Yeah, no, he's too busy with Knoxville County being a mayor nowadays. So
No, I was talking about 2001 when he was, when Jericho
oh
spilled that hot coffee. Or was it a hot
yes,
coffee?
yeah, it was a hot coffee. Of course, it was. No one
But
really likes it cold.
about Jericho, man, he needs another reinvention, in my honest opinion. If you are featuring him as a one of the important acts on your television program, I think he needs another reinvention,
He does, and the only thing that's keeping him relevant now is his theme song.
and that is very sad.
Yeah, it's very not Chris Jericho.
Yeah, and I think we'll get to a point where the fans will not even care about Jericho anymore. Just like what they
I
are
think
doing with Cody.
we've reached past that stage right now. Like it's only his theme song that is keeping him relevant, but with all the drunk stuff that Jericho keeps doing outside the ring, people have stopped caring about him totally. If you know what I'm saying.
So at this point, we need a reinvention. That's the thing,
We really do.
and he can pull it off.
I mean, yeah, of course it's Chris Jericho. So
But this was, I think it was actually advertised. This was a special Thanksgiving thing with
Friendsgiving
Britt
dinner.
Baker.
Yep.
Uh, this featured Tony Schiavone, Britt Baker, even Rebel. They were discussing what happened in the TBS title match, quote unquote, costing Jamie Hayter the match. And Shivani, uh, out of the blues, gave a big announcement regarding Britt Baker that she will actually face Riho. And this is somewhat of a Black Friday themed deal or no deal type of stipulation. And there is some story attached to it, like Rigo actually didn't get eliminated in the women's casino battle royal at the all out pay-per-view, and I just, like everyone else, learned that she didn't actually get eliminated in that battle royal. This is news to me. But yeah, man, they are having a match at Rampage. Some stipulation added: if Riho wins, she gets a title shot. If I'm not wrong.
Yes, it's a similar case with what when Britt had a match with Abaddon on Rampage a few weeks ago.
And yeah, man, there you go. But Shivani actually ruined Britt Baker's Thanksgiving party here, and we got the news that he will not be attending the DMD Christmas party.
That's sad. I feel sorry for Shivani
Uh,
now.
in a alternate universe, Adam Cole is smiling year to year.
It's in the same universe because Adam Cole hates Tony Schiavone anyway, and Adam Cole did mention it in his promo. He's like, "Yeah, what the hell is a friendsgiving dinner anyway?" And this was the entire segment. And then, like I think there was one point where I don't know which match was it, and the commentators were talking about it, and then Tony Schiavone is like, "Yeah, Adam Cole is a jealous bastard. He just said it on mic, and they just continued with whatever match they were covering."
But he is a damn good professional wrestler, what he said.
Yep, he just hates.
Indeed. But speaking about good professional wrestlers, we had Brian Danielson facing Colt Boom
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 boom. Cabana.
Cabana. And speaking about Boom Boom, I am sad that he didn't come out to his original theme and actually came out to the Dark Order theme song.
I mean, the story is more about Dark Order right now, so I thought it was fine. With Boom Boom, I thought you were referencing to JR calling Bryan Danielson Daniel Bryan over and over again.
No, I was actually mentioning the Colt Cabana Boom Boom thing.
Yeah, because even oh wait, have you heard the JR Boom Boom theme song? No.
Yeah, that is a internet classic, my man.
Yes, of course. I thought you were going there, but my bad. I thought it wrong. So yeah,
I think I need to add it back to my Spotify playlist again. You gave
is
me a good
is
reminder.
it's there on Spotify? Is it?
If it's not there, I will add it.
Oh, sure. Let me know when you do.
But about this match, man, hometown guy Colt Cabana, like they did give him, like made him look good, but they kept it little short, little simple. Daniel, they didn't have Danielson go out there have another, banger of a TV match. So, like the really good wrestling, Colt Cabana. If you have seen him in the past, really good technical wrestler. We all know the greatness of Brian Danielson. I think this went about less than 10 minutes or so. Danielson got the victory via
Lebel lock.
was it the label lock?
It was the Lebel lock. Yes. After
But
his yeah.
yeah, I think you were talking about that. He actually, if like he always mentioned, kicks the head out of his opponents, but he actually knocked the teeth out of Colt Cabana. I don't know if it was legit or not, but I will believe it that he actually kicked the shit out of Colt Cabana and knocked his teeth out.
Yes. Because I mean, if Cole Cabana needs to repair his dental, there is a certain someone working for AEW who is specialist in that department.
Yeah, and absolutely free.
Exactly.
And for a second, when they showed it on camera, I thought it was a broken nail.
Oh yeah. Right. I felt the same
Like he
too.
actually didn't, yeah, he actually didn't knock the tooth out of Colt Cabana. He actually chipped, you could say, the tooth. It's
Hmm.
basically in half now.
Yep.
But what did you think about this match?
Yeah, I thought it served its purpose. Like as a match by itself, it was fine. It was mainly to fuel into this heel turn off or the lack of whatever it is for Brand and for Brand's character. Now that he's facing Hangman and he's he's more towards his heelish side now, trying to instigate Hangman or beating the shit out of their friends. So I thought it served its purpose, and yeah.
Now that I look at my notes, it went 5 minutes.
Oh,
So
it's a
that Punk MJF segment I talked about really took some time and they cut some time of these matches.
CM Punk
So
is CM Punk is taking revenge from his old best friend now. So
yeah, I think that was the reason why some of these matches felt really overwhelming. Not that's not a right word, but it didn't feel like a great match on TV.
yes, but with this one, I thought it was fine because, like I mentioned, this is Bryan Danielson is a heel apparently now, but which he has denied on the Busted Open Radio interview that he did. He's like, "This, it's not a heel turn. It's just me being me," and it is Brian being Brian. If you remember from his Eddie Kingston bout, he just went like in a whole different dynamic, and he's just into that character right now. So.
He's not here to put over people. He's just here to kick people's head in.
He did mention that on his first interview, the media scrum that he did.
Yeah, and talk about that promo man with Shivani. Like he's just showing off, Colt's, broken tooth in front of the Chicago crowd. And he mentioned the theory that you predicted. Like he's done with Evil Uno. He beat Colt Cabana in his hometown here in Chicago. And about Chicago, he mentions how he remembers when he debuted at All Out in Chicago. He got a huge reaction, and now he's good. And he gave them a word, and that is pickle. I loved it when he mentioned that, and I loved it when he did it in his WWE run. By the
Yeah.
way, that heel run with the Planets Champion thing, it's massively underrated.
Oh hell yeah, absolutely. That's one of my favorite versions of Daniel Bryan. Just want to mention that.
And I think he's replicating that here in AEW. This could be mostly a short-lived
Yeah,
hating, but we are enjoying it.
because we know what's going to happen. Because if we all are predicting Hangman to win versus Brian once he does, and Brian is just going to shake his hand saying, "Yeah, you proved me wrong, sir." And then they're going to move on with their lives, and Brian is going to delve into the chants, like do this while during his entrance. So it's going to be fine.
And he mentioned you actually brought this theory up last week that he will be facing more members of the Dark Order. And I think next week they are doing in Atlanta Dynamite and
There are two
Rampage.
people.
So
Yeah, there are two
yeah,
people from Atlanta, Georgia. One is Anna Jay, the other is Allen Angels. So, of course, he's facing Allen Angels, but imagine Daniel Bryan versus Anna Jay. Even, sorry, Bryan Danielson versus Anna Jay. I'm JR now. So, even Anna Jay tweeted about it saying, oh, yeah, like I live in Atlanta. Bryan Danielson, please fight me. She tweeted that. So, who knows?
I don't know, man. I think I'm not ready for a Brian Danielson Anna Jay match. But so wait, how many members of the Dark Order are from Atlanta?
Two. I just mentioned them. Anna Jay and Allen Angels.
So where is 10 from?
Florida, maybe. I don't know. If it's
Are they going to
Florida,
Florida?
yes, they are on the final Dynamite of the year and final Dynamite on TNT.
Um, yeah, pretty much he's going through all the members until he gets to Hangman. That's the story.
I mean,
Even
I'm
he
not
mentioned
sure about 10 being from Florida, but if he is, then that's a possibility that they do. Because they have a show in Long Island and they might have face him. They might have Brian face either one
and
of John Silver or Alex Reynolds. So,
yeah, we even got John Silver and Alex Reynolds as well. But about the Allen Angels match, I want Danielson to just finish off Allen Angels in less than 5 minutes,
probably murder.
just just to push the narrative, man.
Yeah. I mean, there isn't a better person to take that fall than Alan Angels because he gets shit from his Dark Order members anyway every single week.
No, like Kenny Omega took about more than 10 minutes, so technically Danielson can prove a point by beating Allen Angels like nothing.
Yep.
But after that, talking shit to the Dark Order, Hangman Page finally showed up. Huge reaction here in Chicago, and he was ready for some cowboy shizness, if you will. Got into the face of Brian Danielson. He was actually ready in his gear. Like last week, he was in the cowboy, get up in his casual clothes. This week, he's ready for a fight. He actually challenged Danielson for a match, but Danielson was not actually ready. So, Page, he gave another offer. He actually doesn't want to leave Chicago with a fight. So challenged Danielson to a fight. Danielson was also happy about this situation as well. So he basically Danielson slapped Page, and then we got a big fight. So yeah, that was basically it, and we'll have to wait and see when do they pull off this match. Just like what we are predicting with Punk and MGF. Maybe at the pay-per-view. Do you see it
A
happening over there?
Battle of the Belts. Yeah. Probably Battle of the Belts if they are because it's a championship match, of course. And if either that or probably the first Dynamite on TBS. But it also takes the
Uh,
shine away from the TBS championship match because this has to be the main event of the show, right?
yeah, feels like we are having it this small period of the next 30 to 60 days feels like AEW is doing pay-per-views every week now.
Yeah, because they have the Long Island show, which is a huge deal. They at least they're billing up to it, and then after that, I'm not sure where are they. Yeah, of course, after the Long Island show, they're doing Winter is Coming. Uh, they could even do it on Winter is Coming actually, because last year we had a world title match on that night, so they could do it again this time. And after that, they have the Homecoming Dynamite episode, the last Dynamite on TNT. So yeah, a lot of pay-per-view specials or whatever you want to call it.
And yeah, I'm pretty excited for this match as well because this match should be good and would be really great for Hangman beating Danielson.
Yes, and it's just you couldn't have a better first win for Hangman as world champion than beating one of the best wrestlers in the world in Bryan Danielson. And all this while that the undefeated streak that Bryan Danielson is on, this is a perfect way to also get Hangman over, being the first person to beat Bryan, and that too in a very convincing fashion as the babyface champion. So it establishes him as like the top face of the company right now. So
There you go, man. Do you suspect Danielson to get the belt?
not anytime soon. Because I
Yeah,
mean,
that
the
would be.
rain that would be that would be just for the heat, for the needless heat, and if that happens, Bully Ray would be a wet person at this point as we speak.
That heat, bro.
Bro, you got to talk about the heat.
Yeah, that is becoming a meme right now, thanks to I think it is the Toriano account.
Yep, big shouts out to Tori on a fan account.
Bro, he's literally making Booker T cry with his tweets.
Is he?
Like
Like,
the,
has he mentioned on his
have you checked out
podcast?
his tweets?
Of course, I have, but no, I mean not Booker T's tweets, but of course the Toriano fan account. Yes, I thought Booker T would be talking about it on his podcast or something.
I think he has talked about it because he's making these parody tweets about Booker T, and his one signature line is chuckles.
Oh yeah, he's like whenever Booker T talks, he's like, "Oh dog, this match is gonna be terrible," and then and then that's basically the whole chuckles part.
But anyways, man, shall we talk about the main event?
Yes, we shall. You want me to run down the car? Oh, I think we have spoken about it already, so
Yeah.
no point.
So,
Let's jump into the main event.
and do you feel like they are really cutting off some segments on Dynamite, or was it just this episode only?
Yeah, it was just this episode only. Ja, that devil CM Punk.
Mm. But let's talk about this eight-man tag. This is the Death Triangle, and Cody Rhodes facing FTR, Malachi Black, and Andrade El Idolo. So this
Igloo.
eight-man was good. You could say your typical, you
Multi-man.
could say, yeah, high-paced, wrestling match on a AEW TV, and there were some interesting moments that is especially regarding Cody Rhodes. Chicago being Chicago, like every other city, Chicago gave some extra love to Mr. Rhodes here, and one spot that I'm mentioning too, like we're seeing some good wrestling, especially with FTR, but that actually became the secondary part because as soon as Cody Rhodes, got in, this crowd went into into the boo modes, and this there was a particular spot where Cody Rhodes, when he gets into a big offense, he removes his the his
Belt.
big belt and tosses it into the crowd. So there has been a couple of weeks in the last 2 3 weeks or so where the crowd demands that whenever he throws the belt and whoever gets it, the fans demand it to demand the belt to be thrown back. It didn't happen for the last couple of weeks, which is fine. But Chicago is savage, bro, because I didn't actually expect it to happen, but it happened and big pop from me.
Yes, it's very reminiscent of ECW One Night Stand 2006 between John Cena and Rob Van Dam for the WWE Championship. Cena threw his shirt and the fans threw the shirt back, and then some person just wiped his ass with it. So, yeah,
And was there a security guard that also was against Cena that night?
yeah, the entire building was against Cena because ECW has their own. It was called. It was called Atlas Security. Yes, like they were a character by themselves on the show or in the company.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we are seeing some similar heat towards Cody Rhodes as well, which is good.
Bully
And the belt
Ray's
spot
Bully Ray is wetting himself.
and the belt spot they did. The fans throwing it back was hilarious. Kind of almost hit Aubrey Edwards in the face.
She
So,
just froze
th-
when it happened the first time. And then
because no one expected it.
yeah, and then Cody is just looking back, and then I was just gonna say I was just gonna say Andre, but yeah, Andrade just takes the belt and just throws it under the ring. So yes, I'm
Yeah,
Jim
that got
Ross.
a huge reaction for Andrade.
Yes, the biggest that he's gotten so far in AEW.
And if you notice, Cody Rhodes felt it that something that the belt is coming back. So he told one of the fans, keep it. But they said like, fuck it, man. But that was a great spot with the belt. Kind of, the match itself became secondary. Everyone was focusing on shitting on Cody Rhodes. But I would say it was a fun little match. Great wrestlers here. And we got the debut of Andrade's Long Boys.
Trunks. He's
Trunks.
been yeah, he's been wearing long boys all this while.
Yeah, that was a big reveal.
Yes. Also on that note, JR has a man crush on Jose.
Like, what's the situation over there?
I don't know. He's been talking very gushingly about Jose. I was like, oh, we have Jose there. Oh, he's great. And then
Hmm.
when he takes the coat off, he's like, oh my God, it's Jose. And then he just like he gets his shit kicked in. But yeah, that's like we'll get to it eventually.
But speaking about Jose, man, he also got involved at one point. So this like the scene was like everyone is cleared, like every wrestler is down. So we get Tony Blanchard, Arn Anderson, Arn the Glock Anderson show up. They do their horseman bit, kind of tease the fight. But Jose had to become the party pooper in this situation. So both the former horseman members, you know, beat the shit out of Jose. So there you go. That was a you could say some teaser. At one point I thought that Cody Rhodes is going to join FTR and we're going to see something, but who knows? That could be something in the future.
He's not turning heel for a while.
But overall, what did you think about this match, man?
um, It was like you mentioned, it was your usual multi-man fiasco where people are just, doing spots after spots, like just getting involved, beating one another. And we had that moment as well, like one person is doing his move on the other person, and then there's another person showing up and hitting his move, and the sequence repeats itself. And yeah, I mean, it was literally just a throwaway match just to send the crowd home happy. Maybe not, depends on what your opinion is. But yeah, the whole match felt secondary after the Cody belt incident, and of course, Andrade's trunks. And like some highlights were, of course, like when Cash Wheeler and Park were having their face off. Both of them did front flips after one another, and then Cash gets his shit kicked in, and of course the Arn and Tully moment, and of course also Cash Wheeler's 619 attempt, which fails on Ray Phoenix, and then Ray Phoenix does the tiger feint and then hits him with a super kick. And yeah, the finish was Park was going for a black arrow on Andrade, and then Malakai Black missed his face, and then Andrade hits the El Idolo DDT for the victory, and that's where the show ends. Fade to black.
I would say I'm actually being patient with Cody Rhodes right now.
Yeah, I
He
mean
seems like
it has to
a
be.
intriguing. Yeah, it seems like an intriguing character, and when he officially, turns heel, that would come out really great and really excited for Cody Rhodes in this heel run potentially, and I hope he turns heel and
Yeah,
doesn't shove this
has to.
forced babyface run, over us.
Yes, I get so it's a matter of when instead of an if. Like it's going to happen, hopefully soon, but don't know when.
And about that belt spot, I loved that he actually got the belt back and the crowd booed again.
Yes, and then that and like in the middle of the match he throws again and then he just tells her like subtly keep it, and then continues with his match.
But
Um
there you go. Um,
yeah.
I want to add something.
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't know where these feuds are going, man. They meshed up all these feuds in one, especially with this match. I would love to see Park and Malachi Black. That would be a really good match. And I'm sensing that they want to do something with Malachi and Andrade as a tag team. They could go after Lucha Bros for the tag titles in a
Then
way.
it'll be cuckolding FTR, which so like FTR's purpose is just being tag wrestlers. So there's no point in making Malaka and Andrade attack.
Yeah, but one of the situations would be good, and especially we want to see what's going on with Cody Rhodes. But that was Dynamite, man, here in Chicago. Really good show, and the highlight was the CM Punk MJF promo battle, and there you go, man.
Yes. Before we wrap this up, sending our best wishes to Jim Ross, who just underwent back surgery and also is undergoing skin cancer treatment. And he did, like, while ending the show, he said that we'll see you guys hopefully sometime soon in the near future. So that's a reference because, right, I think last night JR tweeted saying that he won't be present for the next couple of Dynamite shows until the homecoming one, when they go back to Jacksonville. And so far, yeah, that's it. I hope he recovers swiftly from his troubles, and yeah, hope he gets well soon. But do you see Taz replacing him, or do you see someone else in his absence?
I think they won't do something big. I think you got a lot of announcers you can fill in that spot, just for a weekend. So, but
Couple of
the main
weeks.
thing is sending best wishes to good old JR, and we have to appreciate that he's coming to work like he's basically enjoys what he does.
Yes, and it's easy to shit on him for all his, mistakes on commentary, but he's been doing it for like 30, 35 years, and he's been through a lot of shit himself, personally and professionally. And it's not easy coming back from that as well. So
But
probably we might see Taz come back, but he has his own story. So I don't know. They might probably hire. Is it a good time to see someone like Mauro Ranallo in AEW?
I usually say that, but right now you could do that, but not right now with the situation going.
Sure. Yeah, I'm just
But
being a dick.
that happens to the rest of us. Before we leave.
So you can find me on Twitter or Instagram at red_Rahman. And if you're watching this in video form, you can see it somewhere in the bottom corners, the left side or the right side.
And you can find Slam of Wrestling on Twitter at SlamUpDebut, Instagram at Slam of Wrestling. Catch this review and on Anchor and Spotify as well. This was the AEW Dynamite review, and see you guys next time.
Adios.